Good evening. This is Joanne Chestnut coming to you from my home to yours. I wanted to come on tonight and talk about the dangers of anger. So, I'm in school. Everybody knows that I'm in school. And today I was writing in my paper, and I was writing about the word anger, and the computer auto-corrected it and put a D in front of it and made it danger. And it just came to me and hit me and said, wow, this is what we're dealing with. The anger and is turning into rage and anguish. And we're able to see the dangers of uncontrolled anger, because that's what it is. It's a lot of uncontrolled anger that is coming to uncontrolled danger. And the reason why I say that is because my daughter was out protesting on Sunday, and she was feeling really good about it and told me, Mommy, this is a part of history. I feel empowered and I feel good to go out there and speak for my people. You know, we're tired, we're hurt, we're seeing this. And she had a good feeling about it. And before she could even make it home, she got news that they started rioting. And, it's just a way for us to see that something that could be so powerful and impactful is blunted by the anger that's involved. They're rightfully angered. They're rightfully angered. They're rightfully hurt. They're rightfully tired. But when you really give it some thought, is anything that has to do with looting and rioting and causing more harm? I was looking at the numbers today on the news, and they started talking about the COVID cases going up. And I said, look at how the enemy is trying to turn this around, because we were starting to go into a slight recovery phase from COVID. And of course, when people are out rioting and out protesting, and many people out protesting without mask or without some type of protection on their faces and in close proximity to one another, it's increasing cases of COVID. So the thing that we want to do to have our voices heard and the ways that we're going about it is doing more harm than good. It's almost like, as a nurse, sometimes when people have cancer and they have to get chemotherapy, sometimes when they have the cancer, they may not even know, because they may be just going to the doctor for just a regular checkup, and they go for that checkup and find out they have cancer. And as soon as they start treating it, that's when the severity of the illness comes out. And you know why? It's because the cause is not as bad as the cure. The cause is the cancer, but once they start receiving radiation and chemotherapy, that is actually what causes the onset of sickness. So it's an old saying that says the cure is worse than the cause. And that's what I'm seeing here with all the rioting and looting, and a young man and young lady in Atlanta getting brutally assaulted by officers who are also equally responsible for much of this rioting and looting that we tend to blame on people and call them thugs. But a lot of it is from people that don't live in the city of Atlanta and other places, people coming from across states going to other places and tearing up their city. And stuff that's happening that is taking place by the actual cops is getting blamed on the people, because the people are involved with the problem. I used to tell my daughters when they were young, I used to say, if somebody does something wrong to you while you're in school, don't do something wrong back and both of you are sitting up there suspended. Instead, go and tell your teacher, I don't care who calls you a snitch or whatever, and make sure they get the consequence. You shouldn't have to get the consequence for someone doing something to you. Two wrongs have never, ever made a right. And it ain't no new math that you're going to find that's going to make two wrongs make a right. And if we're as tired if we say we are, we have to make sure that our anger turns to actions that can make a difference, like voting. Like keeping that president off the streets talking about pulling in the military and all of that stuff, giving him power and authority that he wouldn't otherwise be able to utilize if we don't stop the rioting. That anger turning into a more dangerous situation. We all feel for George Floyd and many others like him, for Breonna Taylor and all the others who are victims to praise and their praise to the brutality that's going on in the police department, and many times, as we see for this case in Atlanta, not just with white cops, just pure police brutality. Not only with white cops, because the cops who were responsible for doing that to that young man and young lady that happened to just be coming from getting food from their dorm, wasn't even in the riot, wasn't in the protest, just in their car getting caught in traffic and got tased and threw in a paddy wagon and locked up, and then not even charged. Once they realized they were wrong, they weren't even going to be accountable. And as I watched the news yesterday, the young woman said that the cop, as he walked her off to the paddy wagon, said to her, a black cop, to a black young woman who probably has a sister or a daughter and definitely a mother, a niece that looks like her, and told her, we was going to shoot you. We were going to shoot you. And she said she was more devastated by that than the actual action for her to look at him and see him as a black man, and looking at her as a black woman with all that's going on, that he would even verbalize that. And see, you can look and see the disparity, because the cops who killed George Floyd, took a little while for them to come and arrest those cops. The two men who weren't even cops who killed Aubrey, took a little while for them to arrest them. But you know them two, and in both situations, a white cop and two white men involved with the killing of a black man. But do you know that as soon as a black cop was responsible for injuring and doing wrong to a black person, they arrested them immediately, which they should be, just as the others should have been. Not only arrested them immediately, but is immediately moving forward to charge them, fired them and arrested them and charging them. And if the looting and the rioting and the violence is what's making them move and making a change, then I think it's done enough. It's a time for everything, and it's a time to stop it now. If that's what needed to happen, it doesn't need to continue. So if we really want to do something we've never done before, how about young black men that they say are thugs, not churches, not church folks, not older people, not people from religious organizations, but how about young black men and women who they identify as thugs because of the way they dress and the way they talk? How about them going out there and rallying and praying? How about developing coalitions, just like the cop watchers who are now watching cops, and they're organized? Why don't we organize for voting? Because all those people who were out there doing all of this damage to our city, I'm from Boston and I live in Atlanta and I love both cities. And to be destroying a place that you have to wake up and walk down the street and look around and see the destruction, further destruction, after we've seen and witnessed destruction with that man putting his knee in the neck of that black man, that was destruction. And now we have to see further destructions at our own hand. So you have to ask yourself, if those actions precipitated the change that we want to see, and that little bit did, we don't need to keep going with it. I believe that we've made the point that we're angry. My prayer is that as protests go on, and I believe they're going to still go on, we were hearing, you could turn on the news every day and you'd hear COVID, COVID, COVID. You turn on the news now, you can't hear anything about COVID, but it's going to resurface when all this is said and done. So if people still want to protest, We got to make a decision to go out there and really do what peaceful protesting does, moving something, changing things in a way that doesn't cause further destruction. You know, I always do a Bible verse. I don't have my Bible with me tonight because I'm at my other house. But I can say that I know that in the Bible it says, anger and do not sin. And what that means is that anger is a natural emotion, just like we talked about fear being a natural emotion. It's something that rises up in us. It's what we do with that emotion, with that feeling that matters. My dad used to always say, it ain't a man how a man fall, is how he get up. And for us, it's not how we fell, but it's how we're getting up. And we have to get up from this in a different kind of way than looting and guns and shooting and violence and destruction. There got to be another way to get up. And if we want to figure that out, we can put a meeting of the minds together and put our head together and think about that. But putting our fists together, in the end, we ain't going to see what we're looking for. It's going to be more pain, more anger, and more danger. Because there's danger in uncontrolled anger. And we have to get the anger under control till we can see what we are doing. We have to put goals together, plans, ideas, and move forward with a plan. That is Black America. That is what Black America should be moving on to. That should be the new Black America. When we're talking about doing something we never did before, we've seen plenty of riots, right? The Watts in the 70s and 80s, we've seen plenty of riots. This is nothing we've never seen before. I don't know why people act like it's nothing we've never seen before, because it is. We have a different generation and we have a new generation with less tolerance for what we've been through as the older generation. But if you have less tolerance for it, let's use our heads, use your mind as a weapon, as a tool. You know, there's a reason why they say a mind is a terrible thing to waste. And when we're looting and rioting and hurting other people, that is a waste. It is a waste of time, energy, resources, and it is a waste of your mind. So I just came on today to say, I don't have the answers. Of course, I don't have the answers. I don't know the answers. I do know what the answer is not, and it's not what we're seeing. I can't tell you what it is, but I can tell you what I know that it's not. It's not the dangers of anger. It's not rage. It's not violence. And some of this violence is going on in places, as I said, you got to wake up and see and look around, and it's your community. And I don't know what the answer is. I just know what it's not, and it's not violence. And let's put our minds together. Instead of flooding Facebook with more and more posts about Black Lives Matter and brutality, we know that Black Lives Matter. We got to know that for ourselves. They'll never know that. We know that. And knowledge is half the battle. But it's no sense in continuing to say how much Black Lives Matter if we don't want to take a stand in a different direction and do something different. Developing coalitions, like a Southern Leadership Conference coalitions and all those coalitions that have been around for years. They made moves. They didn't talk about it. They was being about it. They met in private and they made moves in public. And that's the change you see today that we have the benefit of reaping from. We reap the benefits of all those coalitions and all those meetings of the minds that happened many years ago. That's what has to happen now, even more in the new generation, with people who are college educated now. Our ancestors, some of them didn't have college education, couldn't even read a book. We can read books. We're educated. And even if we're not college educated, we are educated. We are intelligent. So let's act like it. And don't succumb to the dangers of anger. Let's put our heads together and not our fists. and show what we're really made of and affect change in the White House, because that's where it needs to start. This is my 15 minutes of faith, and I'm keeping the faith. And if it's God's will, I'll see you again tomorrow.